We have the pleasure of welcoming Frank Elaison to our Engati Engage interview series today. I am Nishita Goel from the Engati team, and I'm going to begin with a quick introduction of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every possible domain and use case. We run the Engati blog and video channel, which receives more than 300,000 visitors on an annual basis. And now, moving on to our guest. Frank is a customer experience leader and has been known for pioneering the use of social media for customer relations. He's been recognized by Business Week as the most famous service manager in the US, actually possibly in the world, and has built a reputation for helping large businesses improve the way they connect with customers and enhance the relationships. He's also the author of the book At Your Service and also a board member for both the Council of Better Businesses Bureaus and also the Society of Consumer Affairs Professionals. Welcome, Frank. We're thrilled to have you on our Engati Engage series today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I'll move on to my first question out here. What is the biggest opportunity space for organizations that are looking to derive higher ROI, where digital transformations can actually make a significant difference?
Well, I think we have to take a step back even. The world is changing. It's always changing. But right now, the coronavirus is huge in the world. And it's actually going to change everything about what we do. There's a handful of things in history that have completely changed the direction of the world. Things along the lines of the Great Depression or World War II, you can lump them together. We can lump Vietnam all the way through the gas crisis. These are things that change the world for the next 20 years. In more recent time, we can look at 9/11 and how that changed the world and brought this security focus. Now we're in this world where we have this virus. People are going to have certain fears of even this. I'm very big into talking about personal connections, but they're going to have fears of these in-person pieces. How this is all going to change the world, it's hard to actually say, but personal view, it is now going to be more about, how do I get what I need in the safest form fashion possible, which would mean, how do I interact with the company? It may mean more electronic interactions, and how we do that is going to become extremely important. Now, there's a few pieces to the puzzle that are going on when we talk about digital transformation. We have to start thinking digitally, and people say they do. No one does. We think the same analog way we've always thought. Yes, we get excited about the digital stuff, but we still think of it as analog digitized. And, we have to throw that all out the door. Right now, we have to think about how do we deliver for the customer before the customer even knows what they want. We've been in this mass marketing world. I'm going to tell you what you want before you even know you want it and tell everybody the same thing. That's not the way it's going to be. It's going to be about delivering value at the moment that value needs to be delivered. How do you do that? Well, that's a lot more complicated than just, hey, here it is. We have to rethink marketing. We have to rethink our customer interactions. We're going to have to start thinking about, artificial intelligence. That's got to deliver, and it's got to deliver what the customer needs at that moment. And artificial intelligence is the only way to do that. But there's a problem, which is we have, up until now, we have not really done the greatest asset, or we've not been the greatest help for artificial intelligence. The companies that have jumped into artificial intelligence have done so in a way that's like, look, I want to tell everybody how great I am. So here, we're putting artificial intelligence out there. See what we did? We're smart. But they're not doing it in a thoughtful way. They're throwing it out there. Artificial intelligence requires that time to be intelligent, that time to build up that. So it's also putting it out there in a very learning mode, in getting it to understand and actually deliver the right answer at the right time, as opposed to probably the wrong answer at the right time. And so, this all needs to be rethought. But I will tell you, the coronavirus itself is going to change all that. I also think that, and we already see this, as this virus is going on, is this growth in the use of things like Zoom. We're recording this via Zoom. This is, Zoom. My family had a family gathering on Zoom. It's going to change how we do things. Video is going to become much more important because if I can't make that personal connection, in person, then maybe I'm going to make that personal connection via video. And so we're going to have to rethink that. And that's going to become a big piece of things, especially because the other thing that's going on is those that may have avoided these types of things in the past are the ones doing it. Perfect example, the family gathering that we just did was actually coordinated by my sister-in-law, who is not the most technically savvy person. This is not the way she would typically do things, but yet she wanted to do it via Zoom. And so, we need to rethink everything, and we need to do it thoughtful yet fast, because the world is going to change so fast, and I don't necessarily know people realize it. And it's all going to be triggered upon this whole viral thing and this, people staying at home, and, and it's going to change us as a society. I actually also think from a work perspective, it's going to make work from home become more norm than it is. And so, that's another component that we're going to have to rethink. There's going to be a lot going on, but it's going to be fast and furious. And those that are not ready for it are going to fail.
Yeah, and especially in the work from home perspective, I think employees are going to be more flexible now since they have been adapted to working from home, and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's fine. I can just work from home and get it done because I'm used to doing it now that way.
That is correct. We're retraining people, whereas up until now, people worked from home. Maybe they work from home on Fridays, or they work from home once in a while. And even then, and the suspicion was they're not working. It's all changing. And I actually think, our educational systems are all going to change. Right now, at least in the US, education for college is outrageously priced, and it is not sustainable at the pricing levels it's at. But people are going to still want that education. Although we've had e-education or e-learning or university courses, they really haven't taken that off. I think this whole situation is going to change all that. And our college education is going to actually become much more virtual than it is today.
Yeah, definitely. I see Indian schools also actually taking online sessions for kids out there. So they don't want to sacrifice that students are not able to come to school, but they're actually going virtual and digital right now. So I think that's a phenomenal step that they're taking out there.
And it even goes down. I have kids in middle school, and they're doing all e-learning right now, and it's all done virtual. They're on Zoom. They're on various platforms actually, and they're already digital natives. Now they're going to be even more digitally native because of the way they're doing things, and I think that's going to change that whole entire aspect. So we're going to be learning new things as a society and how we interact together. The other thing that I think is also going to be extraordinarily important, and it's already been happening, this is not new, but I think in more people's mindsets, we're going to realize that we're one world as opposed to all these different countries or barriers, artificial barriers that exist. And, and then there's another piece that I think is going to change things, which is also going to be this notion that, we're society together. And, right now we've had the haves and have-nots. We've had this split, the people that make a lot of money and then the workers. And it's really funny because that split has been getting further and further apart. Now, who are the essential workers? The essential workers are not the CEOs. The essential workers are the frontline people. And so they're being called to put themselves at risk in this whole virus. And I think that is going to change dynamic across the board as well. And it's going to shift power to that workforce because they're going to realize how important they really are.
That's correct. I think the world is going to get more collaborative right now.
Mm-hmm. It's what we always said about social media, but it never happened. Social media, when 2007, 2008, when we started in social media, we all talked about how this is going to bring us closer together. And instead of that, it actually divided us. It put us into whatever our bubbles were and, changed all that. I still see those bubbles right now. They're still there today. But the reality is those bubbles will all be bursting. We see it. We see this, as people start to realize, I do need information from this other bubble. Just using US politics as an example, and I try not to get political, but in US politics, there's been a divisive view of coronavirus and what it's going to be. It's going to be nothing. It's a hoax, or it's going to be this horrible thing and all these millions of people. And the answers are always somewhere in the middle. And yet people weren't exposed to whatever side they, took. They only were exposed to their point of view. Now they're realizing maybe that other point of view has a point to it. And so that's going to help bring this together where everybody will realize the answers are in the middle. They're not at these extreme ends. And I think that's a good thing for society. I think that it helped build this understanding. And I also think this lack of human interaction that we're having currently will create a desire to be more human. So instead of looking at maybe someone in a different part of the world as, oh, they're not us. Wait, they're just like us. They are us. We're all human. And so I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things that are really going to change everything about how the world works. And that's why, I've seen people say, oh, the winners of the future are going to be XYZ companies. I don't know that. I can't tell you who's going to win and who's going to lose in this whole thing, because the change is going to be so dramatic that it will only be those that are truly ready for it. So you can even have a digital company that appears that they're digital, but they're not ready for this human change that's going to happen. And that's going to create the opposite effect for them. So, just watch this. These are the components. It's going to be human, it's going to be smarter, and it's going to be togetherness. And that artificial intelligence will oversee all this in a way that's not in in the past where it was more freaky. It's going to be in a way that's adding value. And so it's all going to be about adding value to any of those constituencies, whether it's your customer or whether it's your employee. So it's going to be fun to watch, but it still will be scary. But I think it's going to make people are now going to be ready for it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be scary, but then I think it's more excitement which is going to be built out there because, I think that's right. So since we've been talking about the pandemic, which is going on right now, so you did mention a few of the changes which are going to be there after the crisis. What do you think, according to you, will be the normal new now? So as you said, there are going to be multiple changes. What is going to be the normal new? And also and you being an expert in customer service domain, what do you think is going to be a major change in customer service and experience out there?
Yeah, I think the biggest change in customer experience is going to center around artificial intelligence and delivering smart answers right away. I think that that's also same is going to happen societal. So I think both can they're one and the same in many ways. I think the other components that are going to be extraordinarily important is we have to stop thinking about things like our web domain and our things we own. I think that's going to be a shift. And we've seen this more in Asia up until now than we've seen elsewhere in the world. So in Asian countries, a lot of things reside in a variety of chat platforms. That's where the customer is. That's where their interactions are. Yet companies haven't really done as well floating into those spaces, because they kind of think of it as, I own my website. I own. And it's not going to be about owning. It's going to be about delivering. And it's going to be about delivering, in the way that the consumer wants. And so I think you're going to see a lot of service platforms shift to those things. I think the security is going to become continue to be an issue, but I also think it's going to be more importantly, about delivering what that customer wants. And so there's going to be that balance that's going to be struck, whereas up until now it's been a fight, one thing or the other, and I don't necessarily know it needs to be that. And then, so I think that's going to be a big component. As I said before, I do think video is going to become a big component, but that's only because up until now, I've not been a fan of, retail's going away and all that stuff, because people crave touching, feeling product. They want to see it before they get it. They also crave interacting with people that work there. But that fact is, I think that our craving that interaction is going to now be balanced with, could I get sick from this? And so, I actually do think that people will back away from some of those things that, up till a month ago, I probably would have said, hey, stores are at fault because they're not rethinking what a store looks and feels like. But now I'm going to say this whole thing may change all that, and it may shift it more to the web. And is that good or bad? I'm not making that decision. I'm making this what I see happening. And then the bigger component is going to be, how we treat each other, and that is going to be a huge dynamic, because up until now, it's either you're with me or you're against me. And, that is going to change dramatically, but it may take 6 months to a year or more. So whenever we've had these situations, and 9/11 as an example, you have an immediate reaction to things, which is probably some extreme measures, and whatnot. But then you have a longer tail of things, which is bigger changes that are societal. And I think that bigger tail is for this virus is going to be, what we really need to watch. Don't pay attention to these short-term moves. Pay attention to where we go from there. And I think that's going to be hard for companies. Companies are going to want to do that instant reaction, so they can prove how smart they are, whether it be for their employees or anybody else. But I think that longer tail is going to be the where they need to play at. And that's going to be, rethinking our treatment of employees. That's going to be rethinking about how we position ourselves in the world. Are we with the society or are we against the society? I think that there's, and how we also handle that financial divide that we see in the world. And that's going to not rely on companies. It's going to rely on CEOs and, the people that have those funds to realize that they're nothing without their workforce. And they need to rethink that compensation package. I actually think, it's been discussed in the past, but I think we're also going to have to rethink what shapes even a board of directors, and it may include things like employees on it. So we're going to have to rethink a lot of different things. And that's the longer tail stuff. And that's the stuff that's harder to predict. But I think that's going to be where the fun is. And that's where, we're going to reshape the world together. And that requires reshaping the business. And so that's going to be valuing the employees you have, but bringing in the people that actually understand these things to drive it forward. So, and there are people out there that are ready and raring to go. And there are companies out there, the software companies that have the capabilities that are ready. And then it's going to be combining those two to create the best world path forward. And I think that there's a lot we could do on that.
So basically, just to conclude as to what you mean, the companies or the organizations who focus on the long-term or long-tail values and objectives will be the winners out there. And somebody who's looking at like a short tail, like an instant reaction, would not be able to sustain or carry this impact longer.
That is correct. And using a simple scenario, there's going to be companies, once this whole thing is done, they're going to buy all this PPE, these, and when I say that, to just make it national, like things like masks and stuff like that, they're going to buy tons of them because we have to have them. And they're going to overbuy. And, that might be a component to your world. That's an overreaction. Buying the right amount might be the right thing, but buying, we need stockpiles of this, but that's how we react to things. When something happens, we want to do everything full force now. And, and that same is going to hold true for technology. It's doing it right, such as artificial intelligence. We need this now and throw it out there. No. We need to do it right. Yes, you do need it, but you need to do it right, which means you need to build this plan out that does it right, has the learning going on, and gets it out there at the right moment. You put it out there too soon, all it does is frustrate people. You get it out there when it's actually fully engaged and understands these things, understands those interactions. So artificial intelligence a lot of times is used, to answer customer questions. Okay, if I'm the customer, I want it to actually answer my question, not something else. I want it to be right the first time. And so, make sure it's getting that. Make sure it's getting it right before you throw it out there. So it's that longer tail, that longer planning, being smart. And if you're smart, that's what you're doing. And that's across the board in all your planning stages. Companies today, have been planning since 9/11, any scenario they could think of bad scenarios in a company. But truthfully, very few, if any, have ever planned on a global pandemic of this scale. They planned on things going on in this region or that region, not something going on in every region at the same time. So now their reaction is going to be, we need to plan this out. But that was post 9/11. 9/11 came around, they needed to plan. What if we were in New York and this happened? How will we deal with it? That was that instant reaction. Now it's being smarter. We have to learn to be smarter and think that more things beyond just what we just experienced in this pandemic.
Yeah, you need to be aggressive to adapt to new things, but you need to be smart about it.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. You're definitely one of the most customer experience leaders out there. So how would you define customer experience, and how would you actually say, or why do you think experience design is an important aspect of going digital right now?
I think there's been a problem in customer experience, and customer experience is not new. People have been talking about it for years. Problem is, when they're talking about it in whatever bucket their experience is. So a lot of technology leaders talk customer experience, but really they're talking from the technology bucket, and that's what's important to them. When I think of, customer experience, I think of three circles intersecting: technology, process, human. And where they intersect is your customer experience. And, it's a balance of each of those. The problem is, if you do too much in technology, you can invest tons and bring out the coolest technology, but you could be surpassed by so many other things. And there's companies I'm thinking about, but I don't want to say anything. But like, I've watched companies that focused on technology. I'm going to deliver this cool technology, but then someone else is delivering something that's more human, that is understandable, doesn't require me to buy more things, which is a common theme among customer experience. They want people to own more. I want to force you to get this. Well, I want to use what I already own, which is this. And so that's that human side of what the customer really wants. And, so it's people, process, technology combining and getting it into that sweet spot in the center. And when I say people, I am very much about human, which is the other piece to it is, it seems common sense to think like human. The reality is we're all bad at it, because we look at it with our own lens, not the lens of others. And the other piece that I'll say, and this has been a problem in customer experience from day one, we talk things like customer journeys and journey mapping. Yet when I work for companies, I've worked for some of the largest companies, and I look at their journey maps, what do I find? They're basic process maps, nothing more. A good journey map is actually not following the company or the process. It's following the customer's emotional touch points, why they think the way they do. And the problem to it is, what's emotional for me might not be for you. We may have different reactions to an emotion. You may go to the right, I may go to the left. This is what journey mapping is about. And it's about understanding those emotional touch points and how they become drivers, either with a product, buying a product, or using a product, or getting rid of a product. And so, those emotions are key to actually understanding that journey, because then you can actually deliver things that are in more advanced before they even know they have that. So someone has this emotion, oh, here's the direction they're going, so let me deliver this. And that's same as what we're going to have to think about our website, which is, and this is where artificial intelligence is going to come on the web, which is, basically the gist of it is, I need to know you better than you even do know yourself. So I need to be able to deliver when you want it, at the moment you want it, not before, not after. And the problem is, most of the time we keep delivering it whether we want to or not. I use this story about a pair of shoes. One time I found them at an outlet store. They were Nike high tops that were really cool looking. And, they're regularly something like $170 or something like that. And I got them for like $20. And I was like, what a deal. And I bought them and I went home and the first thing I did was, I wonder if I really got a deal. So I Googled them and I went to a shoe website and yep, they're still for sale for $170. I got a really good deal. Problem is for the next month, I saw ads for the shoes I already owned constantly. Why? Because they saw I looked at that page, so I must want to buy them. It's not why I was there. It's not what it wasn't looking for me. It was looking from their perspective. You looked at this, so you want this. Already have it. You're wasting your funds on those ads, but you're also, not adding value to me. In fact, you're usually annoying me by me seeing this ad at every website I go to. So these are things to think smarter, and it's hard. It's hard to understand all that. It's hard to take those things that are outside of our control, such as buying a shoe somewhere else and then looking at price. But these are the things that companies need to think about in the way they deliver things, delivering it just in time to the right person at that right moment and not after, not annoying them. You annoy them, people tend to have a backlash, which means they leave. They don't support you. And so these are the challenges that we have. But there are people with the know-how to actually start to guide people in that direction and help them. And then how to take artificial intelligence to learn even more so we can make smarter decisions on those things. So those are the things that I see happening. And it'll be exciting, but it's going to be scary for some people too. And the other key component to all that is doing it in a way that doesn't seem like Big Brother. If you come across as Big Brother, you also get a backlash for that. So it's this balance. And there's parts of Asia that are very excited about some of this stuff and have been doing some of this stuff. So a lot of this isn't that new. It's out there. But it's really funny because then you go to places like Europe, which is the other end of the spectrum, which has tons of privacy rules on all these stuff. And as kind of that political question I talked about earlier, the answer is somewhere in the middle. And it's finding that right spot. And I think we've always struggled with that. We tend to play in extremes. And so, we have to find that right spot. And if we do, we can be successful.
Yeah, you have to find the right balance. We are always to the right or to always the left. And also the point where you said that the businesses have to understand from a people perspective. I think it's more of also refining the process each time when you understand different set of people out there.
That's right. You have to, just like artificial intelligence needs to keep learning, you need to keep learning. You as an individual, you as a business. And unless you're in that mindset, and that gets us to this whole kind of change management thing where it has to happen constantly. You can't go from here to here. You have to keep going here, 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 and keep moving along. And if you do that, you could be successful. But if you try and go here to here, I can guarantee you, I've watched it, you will lose.
Yeah, you might miss the lessons that you're going to learn on the way. You're just taking a direct hit.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so since we're talking about AI out here, how do you think AI and automation will have a huge impact, yes or no, maybe, on the workplaces and the MIS of departments of tomorrow?
Well, I think there's another component to all this, which is, so I've been talking more about customer, but one of the things I'm also very big on is employee experience. And, I think we're going to have to rethink what it's like to be an employee. We're going to have to rethink what human resources it is. We're going to have to add that human back into it. I think that these are the components that are going to be very difficult, but artificial intelligence can actually do this. Now, here's how it does it. I've used artificial intelligence in the past to actually constantly remap process flows. So to make them smarter, there's a lot of things that we do that are a waste of time or a pain in the neck. Yet your employee won't give you that feedback because it's always been that way. Or it's what they know. Artificial intelligence can actually work on the back end and analyze all that and actually start to deliver it. There's a lot of tools that do this. And, but people don't use it successfully that way. And so that's a huge component that I think will change things. We have to make their lives easier. We have to make employees' lives easier. And by doing so, we then can make the lives of our customers easier, especially because most employees, some way, shape, or form, serve your customer. Whether they're in a service function or a design function, it doesn't matter. Their end result is something that will get delivered to a customer. And truthfully, if they don't have anything that delivers to the customer, then I question, well, why are they there? So somehow, some way, they are there for the customer. And that goes to pretty much every business unit you have. And so measuring that impact and where that is and understanding it, which we don't always do, or sometimes we don't want people to know with that end result, because it might be so minute that maybe my function is not needed. But we should be utilizing that artificial intelligence to analyze all that stuff so we can do it right and do it smarter. Because this is not going to be about this. Up until now, we've been moving our workforce more and more to a 24-hour workforce, especially anybody in a management role where they're connected to their phones, they're always working. One of the things I think is coming out from all this is people are valuing family, as opposed to, I need the career to do this. Family is becoming more important. And yet, it's been so decreased in business. Yes, we could say, oh, you work from home more, you do this, but that's not necessarily adding to family. And so it's going to be also this separation from your devices, so you don't have to work constantly. And so I think that these are all the things that need to be mapped, figured out, and changed. And this is where the coronavirus thing is going to force change within us. And so all interesting things and components that people aren't even thinking about today because we're too much in the midst of the virus.
Yeah, and circling back to the employee part out there. So there is famous writing which says the first step to keep your customers happy is to keep your employees happy. And I think that's where we touch base.
Very simple. But, if you look at the world, it's not as simple as people thought.
I agree. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. Do you believe chatbots and conversational experience design will play a significant role in the future? And how and where do you see them playing an important role in the digital transformation of the companies as well?
Yeah, so it's all going to be about that. Now, chatbots themselves, and like one of the areas that I talked about briefly was meeting customers where they are, such as in Asia, where they're already using these messaging platforms extensively. Chatbots actually are a huge component to delivering in those areas and delivering answers to questions and helping people. It's easily implemented. I've done a lot of work in that area for companies like J&J. And so, you could do some really great aspects to deliver that. But it's also watching this change in the way people do things, which is going to happen across the board. So, we will probably see, I use Zoom as an example. There's going to be a lot of different ways that people interact with each other, going forward. And it might be nothing that's defined today. It might be things that they start to get experience, and then a newcomer may come along that actually winds up owning it. So, I don't want to make a prediction as to the winners of that. But so I think chatbots can be extraordinarily important. I think the failure of chatbots has always been this lack of knowledge or building that knowledge over an extended period of time, which is not a fault of the technology, it's a fault of the implementation. So it's getting that right. So, I think those areas are going to be important. Artificial intelligence helps deliver on those things. I also think there's going to be components where we want to humanize it. And so this is where it might get interesting. People haven't really thought through, which is to humanize. I might have it where it's done video. I might do it with a person. All right, so now I'm having a video conversation with someone, but how do we make sure they get the right answers at the right time? This is another use that you can use chatbots and artificial intelligence for. So they're listening into the conversation and maybe recommending the proper answers to the representative to make it faster and easier for them, so they can actually spend the time building that human connection. So I think that's another component that is a little different than what we've thought about up until today. And so, chat is going to be extraordinarily important. Artificial intelligence, delivering on that will be extraordinarily important. And the thing that we're going to think about is, what things do we need to own versus not own? So, do I need it to be on my website and be my own chat platform, or do I need it on some other website And that may vary by country for today, but I actually expect that to even change because we're going to become much more global after this is all said and done. And so we may see even where today I think there's like 20 major platforms when you start going through just the Asian countries of what people tend to use. But I think that will change as we become more one. And then delivering on those, but then we have to get past our own fears of security and stuff like that, which for many things it's a non-issue. Yes, if you're talking someone's bank account balance, you don't want that in a public sphere. You don't want that in something you don't have control over. I get it. But if you're talking about, I don't know, buying that shampoo, I don't think security is that big of a deal. Security is huge for that credit card, but it's not huge for what ingredients does this have, and so these are the things that we have to think through very much so. And then the other component, and this is more for product companies, which is up until now, most product companies, it's been about delivering through intermediaries, through shops, et cetera. What if they went away? How are you delivering on your own? And also, how are you making it functional where maybe one company is selling the product, but you're the one delivering it. And so there's going to be a lot of things that these combinations that are going to be confusing for companies to figure out, especially those products that are used to selling in bulk and then where they become the deliverer of the product. And so having the right people to understand that, and also then understand that customer interaction piece, which may be with the company, maybe with a different intermediary. How do you ensure that the right answer is on that? There's ways to do that with artificial and technology, as well as these other functions working together with those companies. So this is smart networking and thinking that long tail as opposed to that shorter tail. Here's the instant answer. There's a much longer answer and a longer analysis that will happen. But I actually expect some of your best product companies will actually have those answers. And I do expect that they'll take a little bit more control over answers for their specific product.
Yeah, I think, that makes sense. That's correct. So I also see a lot of companies keen on adapting to new technologies as a part of the digital transformation, but there are a lot of security concerns moving on to cloud. Those come as an hindrance. So not so sure as to, how flexible the product companies have to be incorporated in that, or is it that traditional companies who have to change their mindset to adapt to new technologies?
Well, I think it comes down to our reaction to things, and we tend to have these instant reactions. So, something happens negative on cloud-based thing. Oh, we can never go cloud. The same negative could happen because guess what? Your own servers are the cloud, whether you realize it or not. And so some of the things that we do is these instant reactions, and I think that has to kind of slow down a little bit, bring in the experts to help you figure it out. And so, but the other component, and this is one of the bigger challenges for companies, is this understanding that we need to actually be smarter about all the different device softwares that we have and get them to work together, whether it be cloud or server based, or it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, a great example is CRM. CRM is about great data about your customer, and that should help you deliver something just in time for that customer, because it should have the data in it that understands what that customer wants, desires are before they even know they have it. But it requires artificial intelligence to link that to other behaviors, such as things they're doing on the web or what their IP address is doing, and you can see. And so, we have to think across the board now, as opposed to up until now, it's usually been one department implementing. So if you're the department responsible for CRM, you brought in artificial intelligence, you brought in your own bucket. But then the web bucket over here is doing their own thing. That does not work. You need to think across the board and break free of your buckets. And this is one of the things that I found that consultants actually are, or partnering with the right software vendors is usually the better approach, because they don't think in the silos that you do inside your organization. Naturally speaking, we think in silos. Why? Because we want our bosses to think we're smart. We want We want to protect our job. There's things we want to do. And so, that tends to create conflict inside the organization. So sometimes you need someone from outside to go, here's how you do it across the board, and think through all that. But that also requires, the CEO to be smart and go, let's get the right people involved. Let's put someone at this level in charge of it, and let's figure this out across the board. Otherwise, if you leave it go to your individual silos to do it, you're going to waste money, and you're going to not necessarily get the answers that you want because you're going to be building stuff just for those silos. And so we need to get much more across the board. Cloud-based is a huge piece to it. And we have to start realizing our own stuff's cloud-based, whether it's not. And then beyond that, how do we get that to interlink? So that way the employee that's at home is getting all the right stuff. The customer is going on our website or some other website is able to get the right stuff that they want at the moment they need it. And these are all the pieces to that puzzle, without getting caught up in the trap of, I own this, or I'm thinking it just in this neck of the woods. Go back to that customer experience piece. Hire that technology people. Yes, you're coming out with the coolest technology, but you forgot about the people in the process piece, and you're missing those. And so it's all the same. And so business transformation, customer experience, everything has all those elements involved, and you need to get it right in that center to do it right. Good customer experience people can help you deliver that.
Yeah, so basically a product which connects all the dots together, can connect, basically the modules talk to each other as one, which can be successfully used by an organization to even connect from their employees to the end customers.
That is correct.
Makes sense, yeah. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. So we do believe that there are a lot of changes after the crisis has been over. What do you think is the companies or the spending allocation are going to differ? Like what departments, what focus the business is going to focus more on rather than others?
I think it's going to vary by company, but I think one of the things we're going to see is we're actually going to see this human element. So I'll say human resources, which typically has been an area that gets cut. I think we're for companies that have people that have been labeled essential employees, I think you're going to see an increased spend in that area, because up until now, maybe they've not gotten it right. And so now they need to figure that out. So I think you're going to see an increased spend there. I think you're going to see another increased spend. In the past, I would say, marketing or customer service. I actually think that over the past few years, we've watched a lot of technology move to marketing. I'm going to make the opposite view. I think we're going to start seeing technology recapturing all that, because the problem to it is it's been not going across the board, where your IT department tends to spend and look a little bit more across the board. So I think we're going to see that shift back from marketing a bit and into technology. It doesn't mean they're not spending it. And they're still spending it on similar things, artificial intelligence, CRM. I still think these are going to be important components, but we're not going to do it in a bucket. Because why? Because we want it to actually go to customer service. We want it to go to employee service. We want it to actually go across that board. So I think you'll see, shifts back towards technology in many ways, but also deeper analysis as to what we're spending on. Because up till now, a lot of companies will buy multiple CRM systems, multiple, depending on and I think that's all going to start to slow down. I think someone's going to go, whoa, time out. I think we're going to go to singular systems. I think we're going to go to the artificial intelligence to overlink a lot of that stuff. But then it's going to need to work and function for those different areas, so we don't splinter again. And so that's going to be the challenge for the software vendors, to make sure that they're delivering for each of those department needs in a way that works. And so that's going to, software vendors are going to have to hit each of those departments. So not just ask technology, is this been working for you? But going to those different areas, is this work for you? What do we need to do better? Are you even using it? Because the one problem I've seen in the past, when technology implemented something, no one used it. because they didn't own it. It doesn't work for us. And the feedback never got back to the right people. It just sat there. So then you move it into those areas. Now I see them using it but with just in their area, and then someone else doing the same spend somewhere else with something, and that's not working either. And the answer, back to that political answer, it's somewhere in the middle, and it's something we've always struggled with. And so I think that's going to be a key component going forward. And I think you're going to see human resources and technology will be where the spend is at. I think the bigger component is it delivering across the board? And that doesn't matter if it's the human component or the technology component. It's going to be about delivering across the board.
Yeah, and how much does the technology, let's say, or the human resources offering a value to it? So how much does it offer in value to reach out to your objective? I think that's going to be that's what I understand from the conversation.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. I think I've finished most of my questions. One last thing, is there any sound bites that you want to leave my viewers with?
I think the key thing is, and this goes for, I don't care if you're in business or anything else, listening is key. Up until now, we're great at hearing the words, but not understanding them. And it doesn't matter if it's politics, business, it doesn't matter. You want to get success. Deeper listening to what people really mean by what they're saying, what they want and what they desire. And that's employees, that's everybody else, that's your customers, and so, it's not, and people may say one words, but if you know them well enough, you should know those words actually mean this. And, I think that's the challenge in the world. It's part of that polarization we've had. I think that's going to be key, is understanding what people really mean by what they say, and then trying to deliver for them on that. It's that human element. And I think that's where we're headed. I think it's going to be key. And I think that, we can't just talk the talk. We need to walk the walk. And I hope that is what is happening going forward. So that's what I would want to leave everybody with. Technology is not something to be scared of. Technology can actually make us better. And, but I think that, we do need to understand each other better. We need to understand in business together, but also our customers as well as society. And I think if we all do that, I think we can make this world a better place. And that's my goal in everything, is try and make the world trying to make the world a better place.
Of course. I think that's what everybody wishes for. So thank you so much, Frank. It was amazing listening to you. And I think some of the insights were really helpful and personally will help me look at the way I look at things right now. So it was a wonderful talk, and I look forward to working with you in future. So thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time. Have a wonderful day.